Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to Have You Seen That with T? It is your boy T with another dope pod to step two. And here we are, right? This week, the big movie of the week was Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves, and boy, was I pleasantly surprised with this movie. Right, Chris Pine, I've always said, was the worst Chris of all of them. Chris Pratt, Chris Hemsworth, and then comes Chris Pine. And he's been steadily proving me wrong the last few years. Chris Pine has put together, of course, the Star Trek trilogy. I enjoyed all of those movies. There are a lot of people who did not, but I definitely did enjoy that. I enjoy more Zachary Quinto as Spock than anything else. And then, of course, Leonard Nimoy coming back in for, his role in that first Star Trek movie was perhaps one of the most iconic, I think, Spock takes that I've seen. At least in me watching Star Trek. Please, Trekkies, don't come for me. It's not worth it because I'm not that invested in Star Trek like that. And my Star Wars takes are even worse. But here we are, Dungeons and Dragons. I really did not go into this movie thinking I was going to enjoy it as much as I did, but I really did, right? The cast of this movie is what really, kept the movie afloat. And it was great writing too. It was a lot of, not gags just for gags. Of course, there was a few of those because of Chris Pine's, his ruffian character, and just his penchant for shenanigans. It kind of left that open for a lot of simple gags, but they all seemed to work. Like all of his quips came across as funny. All of his quips came across as being cool. Like it just really worked. Michelle Rodriguez was fantastic in this movie. Her name was Holga Kilgore, which is it's like for all of these characters' names in this movie, it's like they just had like an auto name generator. Like if you've ever played Mass Effect, and they just auto generate your names. Like they come up with these crazy names. Same thing with like the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic games. They would always come up with these ridiculously generic and random names. And I felt like every single name in this movie was that. They just put it in a name generator and came up with these names, which I thought was hilarious, right? Chris Pine's character's name was Elgin. Edgin, there you go, not even Elgin, Edgin. Never heard the name before, but once again, we're in like this Dungeons and Dragons universe where, a lot of the gags had to do with the different creatures that were in the elements, and there were so many different magical and mythical creatures that came around in this movie, in this universe that they created. And the story really centers around Chris Pine trying to get his daughter back. Right, that was not part of the commercials. Right, we had no idea why these thieves came together to steal whatever they needed to steal. We just knew that it was a ragtag group of characters who had to come together to steal something, and they stole something for the bad guy. And at the beginning of the movie, Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez are double crossed by their partner Hugh Grant. And I'm not spoiling anything here. This is not, gonna change your view on the movie. But Hugh Grant takes Chris Pine's daughter and it starts raising her as his own. And that's where it comes into play, where they want to steal his riches in order to, one, steal his riches because they're a bunch of thieves, and two, Chris Pine get his daughter back. And there's a red witch in there. I think her name was Sophia or Sophina. And she was a very credible, I guess, villain for this movie. She wasn't too over the top, very ominous, a lot of, just brooding on her part. When she comes in, when her character's on the screen, she just kind of stands there and kind of looks scary. And she plays a part pretty well. I think that one of the biggest standouts to me was the daughter, played by Chloe Coleman. She was fantastic in the movie. Every scene she was in felt heartfelt. Justice Smith played a burgeoning sorcerer named Simon, who really I think he was the heart and soul of this movie. I think his character went through the biggest character arc and kind of gaining his self confidence. So he came across really well on the screen. And there was a shapeshifter named Doric. Once again, another generic name. Played by Sophia Lillis, who was pretty awesome in this movie. I enjoyed her in this movie. I know I've seen her in other movies before, but in this movie she was came across pretty cool. And I think Michelle Rodriguez's character kind of kept everyone together. She was kind of the linchpin that kind of everyone rallied around. And she had some really funny scenes. There's a really funny scene. Her story arc revolves around her getting left by her husband before the beginning of the movie. And her and Chris Pine kept speaking about her and her husband and how she wasn't going to get him back, and she somehow led them back to her husband's village. And her husband was a very surprise cameo by a very famous actor who really almost stole the show to me. I was sitting in my seat and I was just really that kind of put the movie over the top, just because of who her husband was and how they played it for just this amazingly funny gag in the movie. And it just it works so well. Everything in this movie that probably, if written incorrectly, would not work as well as it worked, because it was written well. The actors all kind of bought into it, and they jumped into their roles. And it was just a fantastic ride of a movie. It ends like all epic adventure, medieval adventure ends. It ends with the heroes, of course, standing tall and kind of leading us to believe that we might be seeing another venture into this universe. I think this movie, like, because of the word of mouth, a lot of people didn't think it was going to be that good, and a lot of people are finding out that it's really good, and they're going to check it out, right? I think the word of mouth is going to push this movie to a different level. And right now it's sitting at 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is fantastic for a Dungeons and Dragons movie, where a lot of people thought it was going to be a terrible movie, and it turns out it's just good. It came out at the right time. Maybe another, because it's shoehorned in between John Wick 4, and then next week all of the kids are gonna go see Super Mario. Of course, I'm taking the kids to go see Super Mario. So it came out, at a good time. It probably could have stood to come out about a month earlier. I think it would have really done well about a month ago, before we got into this John Wick hoopla. After Ant-Man and Wasp kind of died down, I think this would have just fit right in that little nugget before John Wick 4. But here we are. I think this movie will do well this weekend. If you're looking for a good movie to go see, it's just a good action heist movie. Definitely go check out Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. It's definitely worth your time. And it kind of brought me to my list. I haven't done a list in a very long time, but because, there's only so many lists you can do, but because this movie was a heist movie, I thought to myself, what are my 10 favorite heist movies that I've seen, either recently or in the past? And that becomes a lot harder than I thought it would be to kind of break down this list, my top 10. So there's some honorable mentions. A lot of people are going to think, oh, how do you not have this in your list? One of the greatest heist movies ever made that's not on this list is Home Alone, right? Home Alone, in essence, is a heist movie, but it's not on this list because it's not it's not really a heist movie. It's a home burglary movie, but I just wanted to throw that in there because I love Home Alone. One of the movies that did not make this list, bank robbery movie, Dead Presidents. I love that movie. It was one of my favorite movies growing up. I haven't watched it in a while. I want to watch that just to see if it holds up. Dead Presidents, Pain and Gain, another robbery movie, a movie about robberies with The Rock and Mark Wahlberg. Just one of the great Michael Bay movies that doesn't get enough credit, didn't get enough recognition when it came out, still to this day. And the last, I think, honorable mention was Heat, right? Heat was on this list, and then I knocked it off for the number 10 movie. And a lot of people are thinking, how is Heat or Reservoir Dogs not in your movie if we're talking about movies about heists? But Reservoir Dogs really ain't about the heist. It's really about the aftermath. And Heat, I don't know. I just it's something about Heat that just, I mean, other than the epic shootout at the end, just wasn't that fantastic of a movie to me. That's just my opinion. But starting off with my number 10 movie, my number 10 heist film of all time. And it's not really a heist film. It's another bank robbery film, but it set it off, right? And the only reason it set it off, makes it on this list, is because of the iconic cast and Cleo. Cleo is one of my favorite characters to ever grace the screen. She's up there with Bishop. She's up there with, Kane and Minister Society. Queen Latifah and Cleo really set it off over the top, right? She was just an iconic character. You had Vivica Fox. You had Jada Pinkett. Before Jada Pinkett was Jada Pinkett Smith. Before Jason's Lyric and all those things. And it was just a great movie. I enjoyed Set It Off for what it was. For the time, it was that female movie that, we never got. And I don't think we've ever, we've seen movies like that. We had Widows and Hustlers and things like that. But I don't know. I don't think we've ever seen a movie quite on the scale. And F. Gary Gray was just the best director to direct that movie. And it's just a good movie. Gary Gray, one of the most underrated directors of his generation, of any generation. And Set It Off definitely deserves to be on any heist, bank robbery, type list. And it's number 10 on mine. Number 9 on my list was Den of Thieves, another movie that came out of nowhere. I watched Den of Thieves only because I saw the little clip online of 50 Cent, threatening his daughter's boyfriend with this whole crew of just badasses. And that made me watch the movie, right? I went and watched the movie, and it had Ice Cube's son in it. And it was just a good movie. It was about bank robbers. It had a great cast. It had Gerard Butler. It had Pablo Schreiber, who's one of the most underrated actors to me. I love every movie that he's in. And of course, it had 50 Cent in it. And it was just it was a thrill ride. You had cops versus bad guys, bad cops being bank robbers. And it just was a lot deeper and a lot better and more intricate than I thought it was going to be when it first came out. And I'm glad I watched it. It made number 9 on my list because it was just a good movie. I enjoyed it. Oh yeah, another honorable mention on this list that this movie made me think about was Ambulance. Ambulance, Jake Gyllenhaal. That movie last year, that was in my top 10 movies for last year. And that more was about the escape than it was about the heist. That's why I didn't make this list. Number 8 on my list would be Triple Frontier, right? Triple Frontier was, that came out in 2019. It was a Netflix original movie starring Oscar Isaac, Ben Affleck, Charlie Hunnam from Sons of Anarchy, Pedro Pascal, Garrett Hedlund. And this is about a bunch of special forces guys who wanted to take down a Colombian drug lord. And how do you take him down? Go into his house and steal a ton of his money, right? And of course, when you try to go into a foreign country and steal some money, there are going to be some bad guys who don't like that. And calamity ensues. A lot of the movie is about the heist, the build up to the heist. Then a lot of the movie, second half of the movie is about the escape. And of course, things go bad because when you steal millions of dollars of someone's money, they don't seem to want to let that go. So they're going to hunt you down and they're going to attempt to kill you. And there was a lot of death in this movie. Great movie, by the way. It was one of my favorite Netflix original movies. And definitely, if you haven't seen Triple Frontier, check that out. It is a great heist movie. More of a robbery movie. And these next few movies kind of go more into the traditional, what I consider heist movies. So number 7 on the list is The Italian Job, right? Starring Mark Wahlberg, Charlize Theron. You had Edward Norton in this movie. It was a good Donald Sutherland, Jason Statham, Mos Def was in this movie. Like a movie about revenge, right? So Mark Wahlberg's character gets set up by Edward Norton after they pulled off, quote unquote, their last job. And Edward Norton gets off, skates off with the money, tries to kill those guys, and of course, he doesn't succeed. So the gang gets back together and they decide to rob Edward Norton. And he's supposed to have the greatest safe ever built. And Donald Sutherland's character was the safe cracker of the team. And his daughter became his protege. And Charlize Theron plays his daughter, and Mark Wahlberg recruits her. And she hates him because she thinks that Mark Wahlberg is the reason why her father died. And there's this whole tension between those two. And it just plays for good action. And then there's this infamous Mini Cooper getaway scene where they trick out these Mini Coopers to be able to hold the money in it, be light enough to drive through. I think they were in San Francisco or something like that. But The Italian Job is not in Italy. The Italian Job was not in Italy. I guess that was the name of the job that they originally pulled off at the beginning of the movie. But here we were. Great movie. I enjoyed that a lot because Mark Wahlberg and Charlize Theron, when you get them on the screen, a lot of just sparks flew and just charisma. Mark Wahlberg movies usually ooze charisma because he comes across as the everyman who just knows how to rob things. Number 5 on my list. Okay, I guess I went from number 7 to number 5 and I missed number 6. So since I don't have a number 6 in there, let's just go ahead and put Ambulance in there, because Ambulance was a great movie, right? With Mateen, Yahya Maheen was in this movie, along with Isa Rodriguez. Gonzalez, there you go. Isa Gonzalez, man, I'm just messing people's names up. It's because I didn't have that one on my list. But yeah, they play a bunch of bank robbers, adopted brothers, who rob a bank and have to get away in the ambulance. That's why they call it Ambulance. It was made by Michael Bay. And Michael Bay loves to blow up things, and he likes to have sun flares and lens flares in his movies. And this one was no different. There was a lot of explosions. There was a lot of things that blew up. And I always just wondered, it's an ambulance. It really can't go that fast. But it led the entire FBI and CIA and cops on this wild goose chase through LA. Great movie, fun movie. It really wasn't about the heist. It was more about the getaway. But it was just a fun movie. But number 5 on my list, because I somehow managed to miss one number, was Now You See Me, right? Now You See Me, the first movie in that, it wasn't even a trilogy. They made 2 of them. The second one wasn't that good. I think that's why they didn't greenlit a third one. But Now You See Me, starring Jesse Eisenberg, Mark Ruffalo, Woody Harrelson, and I will honestly watch anything that Isla Fisher stars in. She could star in a movie about pouring water into a cup, and I'll watch it because I'm just enamored by her. I think she's a fantastic actress. She's very easy on the eyes. So Isla Fisher, she was in this movie. Dave Franco was in this movie, who's become one of my favorite actors/directors. But this movie is about the 4 horsemen, who are magicians who get recruited by an ominous figure to be part of this Illuminati type group of magicians. Okay, stop me when any of that makes any sense, right? It should not have worked. It should not have made sense in a movie, but somehow it did, right? Mark Ruffalo plays the agent, the FBI agent that's on their tail. Morgan Freeman's in this movie is like a magician who is out to, debunk the 4 horsemen. And it's ultimately a heist movie where magicians pull off this amazing heist to, get a boatload of money and give it to the common people. Okay, once again, all of these ideas sound ridiculous as I say them, but in movie form, I enjoyed the hell out of the movie. It was a lot of, special effects, of course, because it's a bunch of magic tricks. And each one of the characters, of course, any movie with Woody Harrelson in it is going to be great. Woody Harrelson and Jesse Eisenberg have figured out their niche together. They work really well off of each other with the cool, old veteran guy, Woody Harrelson, and then the neurotic, young, kind of wiry Jesse Eisenberg. They just really work together in movies. Of course, Zombieland being one of them. So Now You See Me Part 1 was a really good heist movie. And I always love the movies, how they pull off the heist and then they tell you how they do it at the end. Like, that's become a staple of a lot of the heist movies. And this is one of them where you see them planning it out. And then, of course, it doesn't go exactly the way you thought it was supposed to go. But, of course, they had that plan baked in, too. It just makes sense in a movie sense, of course. In real world, everybody's going to jail or getting killed. Moving on to number 4. Number 4, a rando on this list. This is a Star Wars movie, Rogue One. Rogue One was indeed a heist movie. They were out to steal the plans for the original Death Star, which kind of led to Star Wars: A New Hope. Led to that whole, rebellion, trying to take out the Empire deal. So Rogue One was, just a fantastic movie. One of my favorite Star Wars movies, because it was just, it wasn't about the Jedi, and not saying any movie about the Jedi can't be great, but a lot of those Star Wars movies are not great. But Rogue One was a very centered, very just team-oriented movie, and that's one thing I like about heist movies. When you get this group of people, usually about 5 or 6 people on a team, all of them bring different skills to the table, and they just come together and they just make up, this crew that's going to go knock off whatever the case may be. And in this case, they were trying to knock off the Empire. They were trying to go in and steal the plans for the original Death Star, which they did. But there were a lot of deaths at the end of this movie, which I think didn't put it higher on my list, because it ended on such a somber note. And it was just to me, it was definitely in my top 3 favorite Star Wars movies of all time. A lot of people give me flack for that. I don't care. I'm not really a huge fan of Star Wars to begin with. But this movie was just a well-made movie. Number 3 on my list is The Town. The Town, another bank heist movie starring Ben Affleck, Jeremy Renner, Blake Lively was in this movie, and once again I watch her paint a wall. Just great in this movie. Titus Welliver, one of the most underrated character actors of all time, was in this movie as well, along with John Hamm, who definitely doesn't get enough credit for being as great as he is. But The Town should not be a great movie, right? The Town should not have been as great as it was. It was about a bunch of low-level townies, out to rob a bank, right? They were out to rob banks, and they came, wanted to do one last job, of course. And of course, calamity ensues. It's not a very positive movie. It doesn't paint these bank robbers in a very positive light, because it's just a bunch of down on the luck people who are just doing what they need to do in order to survive, in order to thrive. And of course, you got the rich, greedy one, the greedy one who wants to just keep going, and bad things happen, right? And The Town, just one of Ben Affleck's best movies, if not his best movie he's ever made. Just a great movie. He directed it, he wrote it. Just a fantastic movie to me. Town, just one of the most underrated movies, I think, of this generation, if not any generation. Then number 2 on my list, and this is where the list gets tricky, right? Number 1 and number 2. Number 2 on my list is going to be a controversial pick, because it's all of the Ocean's movies, right? Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12, and Ocean's 13. We're just going to forget that they made Ocean's 8. It was a terrible movie. Had nothing to do with gender roles or anything like that. Like, I enjoyed the female Ghostbusters. I did. But Ocean's 8 was just a terrible movie. It was just not well written. It was not well thought out, and it was not well executed. All of the actresses in the movie did what they were supposed to do, but it just didn't work, right? It really just didn't work. The whole Met Gala thing, it could have worked had it been better written. But Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12, Ocean's 13. Those were just iconic movies. Now, each one of them progressively didn't get better than the last one. I think Ocean's 11 was the best out of the group. The cast, right? The cast of the cast of the Ocean's trilogy, right? You got George Clooney, Matt Damon, Brad Pitt, right? I thought it was funny in the first movie, like Brad Pitt, Brad Pitt and George Clooney were just at the top of their game, right? They were the top Hollywood stars, in the game. By the time Ocean's 13 came around, Matt Damon was the top guy, right? So they wrote his role. In Ocean's 11, Matt Damon had a very small role, right? I thought that was hilarious how it happened, how each movie his role got bigger because he became a bigger Hollywood star who, just wouldn't be stopped, right? You just couldn't stop him. Just kind of like Bernie Mac was a huge star in the original, when Ocean's 11 came out. He was one of the biggest movie stars. That's why they, cast him in that movie because he was a huge comedian. He had a huge movie following at the time. Then when Ocean's 12 came around, that was the time when he was filming the Bernie Mac show, so he wasn't really in it that much. And I think he passed away either right before, they finished Ocean's 13, which of course was just tragic. But this movie, Andy Garcia was fantastic in every single one of these movies. Andy Garcia, a human being, an actor who does, once again, these are just all underrated. These are my favorite actors, right? Andy Garcia doesn't star in bad movies, right? He really doesn't. He picks his roles well. And he was fantastic in this movie. He's always fantastic, right? He just doesn't get the credit that he deserves. Vincent Castle popping into Ocean's 12, being the Silver Fox or whatever his name was. And then you had Catherine Zeta-Jones who jumps in the second one. Julia Roberts was fantastic. These were just great heist movies, and they started, to me, the whole planning out the robbery and everything goes bad. And then at the end, you see how they pulled it off, right? Like at the end, you see the wool comes off, the mask gets taken off, and they show you exactly how they got away with it. And it's always just so cool, right? Steven Soderbergh just made these movies just this element of coolness to every single character. They made Elliot Gould seem like a made man. Like he was just this really cool dude who kind of pulled a lot of strings behind the scenes, right? Like Steven Soderbergh knows how to write movies. He knows how to direct movies and make everyone look like $1,000,000. In his movies. And Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12, and Ocean's 13 are no different, right? Great trilogy of heist movies. So I put all of them as my number 2 on this list. And then my number 1 movie, my favorite Spike Lee movie of all time, The Inside Man. Why is my Inside Man number 1 on my list? 1, it has Denzel Washington in it. 2, it has Chiwetel Ejiofor in this movie. 2 of my favorite actors. Clive Owen, Jodie Foster. Just the cast in itself, just a powerhouse cast, right? William Dafoe, just a powerhouse cast of characters. But the way that movie plays out, the way that the heist plays out, it kind of reminds me, I think Money Heist took a lot of their cues from Inside Man. One of my favorite Netflix shows, The Money Heist. The first season, not the subsequent seasons of just craziness. But The Inside Man just plays, Clive Owen just played Denzel Washington like a fiddle throughout the whole movie. The whole movie, it became a heist where they end up not stealing anything but information. Like it's just this random great movie that came out of nowhere. And I will not lie to you. I was not a fan of any Spike Lee movies that wasn't predominantly about telling a black story. I'm not saying that he can't make films, any type of film that he wants, and he's proven that with this movie. But I just didn't see this one coming, right? I did not see this movie being as great as it was. and it was just fantastic. The ending of it, him hiding in the bank. If I'm spoiling this for you, shame on you for taking 10 years to see The Inside Man. This movie came out in 2006, right? So you've had plenty enough time to watch The Inside Man. It's been on regular TV. It's been on cable TV. It's probably been on Tubi. It's been on Netflix. It's been on all these different channels. Now, Inside Man was great, right? But don't watch Inside Man Most Wanted, another movie that came on Netflix that just tried to take that idea and start, it was supposed to be about his sister, Clive Owen's character's sister, who put together a bank heist. It was terrible, right? Don't get those two movies confused. The second Inside Man had nothing to do with the first one. It wasn't any of the characters from the original movie. It was just a terrible movie. But on that note, that's my top 10 heist movies. I'm going to stick to that. There are a few other ones that you could pop in there. There are definitely some terrible heist movies out there that you can watch that serve no purpose other than trying to be smart. But those are 10 great heist movies. So if you haven't seen any of those movies, I don't think I spoiled any of them other than Inside Man. But once again, you probably have seen, if you listen to this, you've probably seen The Inside Man already. But if you haven't, go watch it. Forget what I said and just watch it because it's a great movie. Other than that, I think we're going to end the podcast on that note this week. Definitely this weekend. Definitely go see Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves. This is a big weekend in my household. This WrestleMania weekend. If you don't watch wrestling on the Peacock Network, we got Saturday and Sunday, WrestleMania Night 1 and Night 2. Me and the family are going to sit down and watch WrestleMania Night 1 and Night 2 this weekend. But if you don't feel like watching wrestling, definitely go check out Dungeons and Dragons. Go check out John Wick 4 if you haven't already gone to see it. Those two movies are definitely worth your time, definitely worth your money to go check out this weekend. Next weekend, Super Mario Brothers is coming out. I'm definitely going to go check out Super Mario Brothers. And the weekend after that, Air comes out. Air, starring Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, the story about how Phil Knight and Nike found Air Jordan or created the Air Jordans and how they got Michael Jordan to sign on to it by dealing with his mom. Those are two movies coming out the next 2 weeks. And then on the 21st of April, Evil Dead Rises come out. And I want y'all to look down, go in the comments and tell me if I should go see Evil Dead. If you want a movie review on Evil Dead Rises, I'm not going to lie. I'm actually terrified to go see that movie in the theater. I watched the preview and it looks terrifying. But if I get enough likes and enough subscriptions to this YouTube channel and enough people saying they want me to review Evil Dead because they want to know if they should go see it or not, I will definitely go watch this movie for you, the fans, but it got to be enough people. It can't be one, can't be two, can't be 10. I need at least 50 people to say that they want me to go see Evil Dead, and I don't even think 50 people are subscribed to this channel just yet, but we're getting there. We are getting there one subscriber at a time. So if you have the time, go ahead and throw a like on this video. Go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Have you seen that with T? It is definitely my pleasure. Definitely listen to the podcast on Apple Music or Spotify. Next week is going to be a fun week. Going to see Super Mario and definitely keep supporting the page. I appreciate it. Everyone who throws, those movie suggestions out there for me. I'm going to do a lot more videos, a lot more movie review videos in the upcoming days to try to get more content out there. But I do appreciate the support. I appreciate the love, and I appreciate the people telling me how bad my color looks, right? How dark it looks on some of these videos. It's a work in progress, baby. It's a work in progress. I'm working to get my videos up to snuff, working to get my studio up to snuff, which is my guest bedroom, which is why you see the big TV in the background. This is kind of my guest bedroom / my man cave, where I come in here, play video games, work on my computer and all this stuff. But we're getting there. We are getting there to where it looks like it's a professionally done video and with professional audio and all that type stuff. But I do appreciate the support. I appreciate all of the feedback. Any feedback is good feedback to me. And I hope y'all have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy WrestleMania. Enjoy John Wick 4. And enjoy Dungeons and Dragons, Honor Among Thieves. And on that note, we out of here.